Hospitals experience tragedies every day, but never quite like this. I'm Mark, the Overweight Survivor. I make Fallout lore videos, and today I'll be investigating the tragedy of Kendall Hospital in Fallout 4. Those expecting a plentiful supply of stimpaks from the hospital location are in for disappointment. Despite this being used as a hiding point for the railroad faction, raiders discovered them, butchered everybody, and are either burning the corpses or throwing them down into a central pit to be consumed by a ravenous beast below. When most of us think of hospitals, we likely envision a place designed to help nurture those in need of aid. But despite a hospital's best intentions, they also represent the inevitability of death for many individuals. The Kendall Hospital of Fallout 4, of course, once served a medical purpose, but the same cannot be said of the year 2287. Why should you care now, though, about an unused hospital, you might ask? Well, post-war, it did find an important reason to exist in the Boston Commonwealth, one that involves the area's railroad faction. Many of you have likely explored the railroad's mission to secure a better future for the area's escaped synths, offering safe passage and a means to cut off the Institute's control over them. Their underground headquarters is somewhat well hidden, built underneath the Old North Church and its subterranean catacombs. But the railroad's network has suffered multiple blows in the years surrounding 2287, events that almost dismantled the railroad entirely. The HQ in the North End District isn't the first home the railroad established. It's actually the second, and the reasoning for why involves a targeted assault by the Institute to wipe out their operations. This new chosen HQ location of the railroad would serve as a central hub for the group, but separately many safe houses also connected across the Commonwealth's landscape, which can still be observed on a chalkboard within the Old North Church central location. Sadly, these safe houses were part of a devastating attack by the Institute, with some of them having statuses still unknown to the railroad's leadership in 2287. One particular safe house stands out in this chalkboard for today's story, one named Augusta, followed by a question mark. The railroad, of course, couldn't survive without a network of strategic locations across the Commonwealth, and a safe house titled Augusta became one of the larger ones based within the former Kendall Hospital in the Cambridge district. The hospital is a bit deceptive from the outside, as while it doesn't appear to be much of a skyscraper, its interior housed a fairly deep underground facility that goes several stories into the earth. Unfortunately, the flooring within the building gave way at an undetermined point, likely during the Great War, making the majority of the building an open cavern, but still incredibly usable. The railroad saw potential in the location for it to expand its network for escaped synths, but the Cambridge-based operation, along with many other railroad hubs, would eventually be noticed. In the years leading up to 2287, the railroad managed to secure several victories against the Institute by leveraging pre-war assets, increasing their security measures, and recruiting several talented individuals with regards to weapons, medical technologies, and discovering the switchboard bunker used by the Defense Intelligence Agency in Fallout's old world. Locating the switchboard was a critically needed win for the railroad, as it housed a pre-war robot named the Predictive Analytic Machine, or PAM, a resource capable of predicting the future with extreme precision and probability accuracy. Despite these advantages, though, the switchboard and all of the railroad's strategic positions were about to face a coordinated and demoralizing series of attacks in October 2287. The Augusta safe house would unfortunately have the unique distinction of not just tragedy, but particularly brutal circumstances. In late 2287, the Institute had used considerable information found across the Commonwealth to triangulate the railroad's positions, allowing for their coursers, or synth operatives, to launch a multifaceted attack on them. While the switchboard managed to launch countermeasures for an escape, the Kendall Hospital group saw a drastically different set of circumstances. The hospital team would meet a large force of both new and old model synths that knew exactly where they sat within the building. What made the attacks particularly devastating was that one courser would normally be batted off on its own, but the Institute decided to send two in this attack, alongside multiple waves of earlier model synthetics. The full-on synth invasion would lead to a massacre that left every railroad operative dead at the Kendall Hospital for the exception of one man, an intelligence agent named Blackbird. The last known railroad intelligence on Blackbird believed that he had been captured, with the synth infiltrators attempting to interrogate him for more information on additional operatives. Upon investigating the ruins of the hospital, it's quite clear that the railroad was indeed completely wiped out, but looking closer will show no signs of Blackbird anywhere. Blackbird was an essential piece of the Augusta safe house, being that he was the initial organizer of the site itself. His status in late 2287, however, becomes a mystery that many within the railroad faction wanted to resolve, as his peers wanted to determine if he truly fell to the Institute or to some other unknown fate. Fortunately, one last intel dead drop did exist on a confirmed sighting.
Blackbird spotted. Badly injured. Way too many hostiles for the runner to engage. Request assistance from HQ.
While Blackbird might have escaped one potentially brutal outcome, tracking down the final intel drop leads to a sad result, as the sole survivor will discover his final resting place, and a note detailing the onslaught he witnessed at the hospital. It's unknown if he succumbed to wounds sustained during the initial invasion, or potentially after, but regardless of when it happened, with his death, the Augusta safe house is no more. The Kendall Hospital already represented one significant tragedy, but it would actually continue to be a home of intense violence in the days that followed the fall of the Augusta safe house operations. Near to the Institute's invasion of the site, a band of raiders would also equally take interest in the position, launching their own separate attack on the synths who now held the building. The bloodthirsty group, however, was much better equipped than the railroad's comparatively humanitarian efforts, bringing along better weapons, strength, and a determined goal of using the former hospital for themselves. The Institute quickly saw itself facing a battle similar to what they had just unleashed on the railroad, as they were outnumbered, outgunned, and bested in a short time. The raiders would secure the location, and while we don't have a detailed retelling of exactly what happened, what we can see is the aftermath of the bloodshed. Events marked by a bonfire inside the hospital's main entry floor, with a pile of corpses being burned within what was left of the railroad and synthetics remaining there. The site is a rather odd one, as most would not dare risk open flame within a building, but raiders aren't exactly of sound mind in the first place. The strangest part about this concept, however, is not that they chose to burn bodies here, but that they had so many corpses to dispose of that they had to resort to a secondary option. The inner chambers of the hospital, as we mentioned earlier, have fallen into an interesting state of disrepair, as its larger section separated from its main floor is now a several stories tall cavern. As I mentioned earlier, the weight of the floors likely fell during the Great War itself, or at minimum, saw its support structures severely weakened. What makes its basement the stuff of nightmares, however, is a deathclaw that decided to move in that now occupies the lowest part of the pit. An odd relationship seemed to form between the raiders and this unnamed deathclaw, as any corpses they decided they didn't want to burn or turn into lawn art would be thrown into the cavern as a meal for the hulking beast below. Remember, most of us can't tell a modern generation synth from a human on visual inspection, so it's likely that this deathclaw not only ate a human or two, but it's even more of a probability that it needs to pick a few synth components from its teeth. Fortunately, it's not too hard to take it down from an upper floor, but don't risk falling in on accident. If you managed to somehow miss the Kendall Hospital, hopefully this video made you want to check it out. The Railroad's quests aren't always fully explored by players, and if you decided to follow their threads, you learn about their intel dead drop system and the full extent of the Institute's brutality. But if you like this video, consider subscribing for more Fallout lore and related content, and let me know what you think. It helps me to understand what kind of videos to make next. As always, Wastelanders, thank you for watching. This is Mark signing off.